Hi everyone, so we have a new learning target today for math. It is, I can measure length to the nearest half or fourth of an inch. So for this lesson, we are going to be using a ruler. I made my own little rulers just so it was easier for you guys to see when I was measuring things. So first things first, when you are using a ruler, we're making sure that we're using the side that is in inches, not centimeters. So make sure you're paying attention when you're using a ruler because your inches are going to be bigger than your centimeters. Now, for this first part, they say about how long are Sia's lines. We're going to be using our little ruler that I made that has the half and the fourth inches on it. These are our whole numbers. It just goes up to 3. Starting with 0, we go from a fourth of an inch, half, 3/4, a whole, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, 2, 2 1/4, 2 1/2, 2 3/4, and 3. When working with fourth inches, you can also say a quarter of an inch as well. Now, we're going to measure these top lines. When I'm measuring, I need to make sure the left of my object is lining directly up with my 0, or my measurement's not going to be correct. So from 0, there's the left to the right of my line is about 3/4 or 3/4. So line 1. Now remember, I'm working in inches and I can't forget my label. So I can either write out the word inches or I can abbreviate with IN. Moving down to line 2, lining up with my 0. I'm past my first whole number, which means this whole number, 1, is going to be in my fraction when I say how long this line is. So I have 1 whole, 1 1/4, 1 1/2. So when I'm writing my fraction, I need to make sure I put 1 1/2, and then remember my inches. Line number 2. Starting with 0, lining it up to the end, I'm past 1 whole, and I'm also past 2 wholes. So mine's lining up at about 2 1/4. Then moving down to my very last line. Again, lining up my 0 all the way to the left. I'm past my first whole number, which is 1. And my line looks like it's about at 1 1/4. Again, don't forget your label. So that was just practicing using a ruler. With this lesson, you are only going to be using 1/2 inches and 1/4 inches or 1/4 inches, whichever you would like to say. So moving on to this part 2, I'm going to switch to my smaller ruler for this one. Measure the length of the leaf and use a ruler marked with 1/2 inches. So this one, I only put 1/2 inches on. But on a normal ruler, just show you if you guys can see, here's my 0 and here is my 1. Our 1/2 inch is going to be that longer line directly in the middle of my whole numbers. My 1/4 inches or 1/4 inches are going to be that line directly in between that 1/2 inch line and my whole number, it's going to be this little bit longer line right here, just for those of you that are using an actual ruler. So I'm going to take this, and it asks me, let's just go through my questions first. What does the mark on a ruler between 1 and 2 show? So I'm just going to look at my ruler. Here's my number 1, and here's 2. What's in between it? I know it says half, but we have to remember we're between 2 whole numbers. So think for a second what number or what my fraction should be between 1 whole and 2 wholes. Should be 1.5 inches. 1.5 is between my 1 and my 2 on my ruler. So here's 1, 1.5, 2. That half is directly in between the 1 and 2. Now, between what 2 marks does the right end of the leaf line up? So I'm just going to take my ruler, line up my 0 directly on the left end of my object, and look right up here, and it looks like my leaf is ending up at, here's my whole number of 2.5. So it kind of looks like it's between, I'd say maybe 2 and 2.5. So I'd say the right end of my leaf is between 2 inches and 2.5 inches. But they want to know which mark is closer to the right end of the leaf. So I'm just going to put this back up here to just double check. Now would I say that my leaf is closer to 2 or 2.5? Look at kind of where it's lining up. So 2.5 inches. It looked closer over that way. So what is the length of the leaf to the nearest half inch? We just answered that right up here. 2.5 inches. So I know halves are easier for you guys to work with because you know a half is directly in between 2 numbers. But now we're going to flip this, and this is where we're going to start using 1/4 inches, or you can refer to it as a 1/4 inch. I like to think of 1/4 inches as actually using quarters. I know I need 4 quarters to make $1, and I also need 4/4 to make a whole. So I think of 4 as quarters. Now, with a 1/4, I'll show you guys on this ruler again. We'll go in between 1 and 2 this time. Here's 1, and here is 2. So here are my whole numbers. My half is directly in the middle, but in between that 1.5 and 1, I have this little bit longer line right here. That is a 1/4 inch. So from 1 to this line here, there's a 1/4, and then I'm at my half, and then I'm at my 3/4, and then I'd be at my 2. So I made a little bit of a different, we're going to be using this longer one for this because this one has my whole numbers up to 3, my 1/4 inches, and my 1/2 inches. Now for this one, the right end of the line is between, remember, I come right up here, I line my 0 up directly to all the way to the left of my object. come up here. Looking at the right, my line ends, let's use a different color to show this. Just line this back up. My line ends about right here. So I would say that my line is in between 2 1/4 and 2 1/2. So on my line, I would say the right end of the line is between 2 1/4 inches. Remember, we can't forget our label. And 2 1/2 inches. I'll bring that up to show you guys so it's easier. Right in between, this is where my line ended, in between 2 1/4 and 2 1/2. Now, they want to know which 1/4 inch mark is closer to that right end of the line. So looking right here, what is that red line closer to? The right end of my line, is it closer to 2 1/4 or 2 1/2? Hopefully you were thinking what I was thinking, and I was thinking 2 1/4. So the length of the line to the nearest 1/4 inch is, we just said up here, it was closer to 2 1/4 inches. Now, some important things to remember when using a ruler. Remember to always line up the end of your object, so all the way to the left, lining that up directly on the 0 that's on your ruler so you get the most accurate measurement that you can. Also, do not forget to use your whole numbers when writing your answers. So let's just take this line for example. I know I was already after 2 inches, so I need to keep that whole number and just add my fraction onto it. And then always remember your labels, whether you're working in inches, centimeters, feet, meters, anything like that. Always remember your label so people know what you're talking about, what you're measuring. But for this lesson, we'll just be working in inches. So if you guys need any help, I want you to refer back to this video. But if you're all set and all good, move on to your HMH math assignment. Have a great day.